Okay, one quick thing I do want to address before we start this video. It's the first time I'm recording with this mic when I'm doing this, like, face-to-face video. So I am holding it like a microphone as if I'm singing. And yeah, I'm blocking a lot of my face for most of the time. So please excuse that. I'm trying to work on that. But yeah, just a little warning. So I've been gone for quite a while. I think the last time I posted was in March. That's possibly correct. Yeah, we're not gonna talk about that. But what we are gonna talk about is that I am in fact back and I am posting again, hopefully more regularly, but with university and moving and everything, I just didn't get to it. And now being back and ready and all set up, I am now able to actually make more content again, especially on this platform. Like, I've been posting on TikTok and on Insta a lot recently, almost daily, which is kind of crazy for me, but it is not an excuse for not posting on YouTube. So I'm getting back into it. My finals are coming up, so it's gonna get stressful again, but I did finish this piece in my free time, and yeah. Okay, so let's address the blatant lie I put onto the thumbnail. If you've looked at the thumbnail more closely, you can see that I put a few tag words and a little hint to what is going to be happening in this video. One of those, or more, two of those words were the words one layer. Now, I didn't completely lie. At the beginning, when I started this sketch and the general idea for this painting in general, I wanted to get as close to the real experience of painting with normal paint on a digital device. Now, in the real world, you can't really layer things the way you can do in the digital media. And as a challenge, I wanted to force myself to only use one complete layer. So the sketch layer, the painting layer, the rendering layer, all of that in one. And I did begin on one layer. I started painting on one layer, but that quickly changed after I realized that it's just too complicated. This piece that I had imagined in my mind was just way too complicated to actually achieve what I was trying to do. And to put it simply, I also didn't have the motivation with everything going on in my life separately. It just was a lot to handle, so I did decide to scrap the idea of one layer, but still keep a few elements in that general idea of using, for example, only one layer for this armor piece instead of using another layer for the shadows, or just using one layer for the two main characters in the very front. And it all accumulated into one big happy accident, but I definitely did lie in the thumbnail with saying one layer, because these are definitely more than one layer. I think I have up to 30 layers now, which is absurd and crazy and a long jump from one layer, but it did help me make this pretty satisfying picture. Okay, now let's tackle the obvious title if you've clicked on this video, which is, can I even finish this piece? This was a big question when I started it, because I started this in March, right before I moved, and you'll hear me mention this multiple times, but I just need to emphasize it because it is important to this point, because moving takes a lot of effort. But yeah, I almost didn't finish this piece. I almost moved on and just scrapped it entirely, but after finding the motivation to start on this piece once again, I really got back into it and I finished it within a week or so. So there is a pretty big jump between starting this painting and actually finishing it, and you'll see it in my style and the way I paint. But I do think it was beneficial, as I had time to reflect and actually reconsider the entirety of this piece and the meaning behind it. Even though it doesn't have a lot, it was important for me to do. Now let's get into the whole idea and inspiration I had for this painting, and I do call it painting for a reason, as yes, you could classify this as an illustration and more specifically as a digital illustration, but my whole inspiration for this was Renaissance and Renaissance paintings, and more specifically also the paintings you can see on the roofs of churches, and more specifically churches built in the Renaissance era, as they are, I believe, the most common when it comes to paintings on walls and roofs. They were meant to just give this illusion of not being in an inside room. They're kind of warping the reality of what you actually are in, and they are I believe from my research, are meant to give the viewer the sense of being part of heaven, being part of this cosmic idea that the church embraces as much. Now, the church isn't the only inspiration for this. I've also been in quite a few museums, especially one in Vienna, the two twin buildings. I'm not quite sure the area it was again, but definitely one of those two buildings. There's this historic paintings museum, and I really love that museum. I've been there once, as it does cost quite a lot to go into that museum, but it's fine, it's still amazing and I still love it. And I went there for a school trip and it was just incredible. I fell in love with those paintings. I have a few sketches in my old sketchbook of a few of those paintings that I did see there, and a lot of them were horizontal and in a format that elongates in the horizontal direction. And I did want to do that once again. If you'd watched my most recent video, most recent 3 months ago, I did do another horizontal piece of my original character, my very first, I believe, and I just wanted to do that again. And this was the perfect opportunity to do that. Now, if you Google Renaissance paintings, just in general, the first few images you'll see are very religious pictures and a lot of meaning. My painting doesn't really have that. It's not very religious and it doesn't reference anything from the Bible, as I know. And if you look back at all the references and all the things that come up, if you just put in the words Renaissance painting into the Google search bar, it's very, very heavily based on scenery from the Bible or scenery that you typically see in churches. One of them, the most famous, being the painting with the two fingers touching. I believe it's God and David. I might be wrong, do not quote me on that, but it is the general idea, I believe. And another very famous Renaissance picture is the Mona Lisa. A lot of portraits did come from that time. I don't think it's the most common, but there are definitely a lot of them. A lot of rich people and a lot of more common folk actually did get more portraits. Do correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty rusty on the history of it. I had that like 2 years ago and now I don't quite remember, but I believe that is the case for what I'm saying right now. For my piece specifically, I did want to, from the beginning, do a original character illustration, but I thought I've drawn him way too many times and it's time to draw new characters. So these are just random invented characters, and I did want to focus more on the techniques and the look of the painting than the meaning. I usually do put a lot of thought and meaning and metaphors into my general illustrations, drawings, and paintings, but for this I did really want to focus on the horizontal format and filling that space, not just randomly, but with a lot of thought behind the composition and the colors and rearranging the foliage and the armor pieces and the shine of that piece and the blood splatter of that person. It's just, I put a lot of thought into the composition. I don't know if it was quite as successful as I wanted it to be, and you can see me also changing quite a lot. The size of certain characters, the actual and real pose of one of the characters, and it took me quite some time to actually be happy with the composition, but I did get to a point where I was satisfied and I was ready to move on. And during the end, or towards the end, you can also see me enhance that and actually go back into the composition and just rearrange the whole layout, but it's pretty similar to what we have at the beginning, but just better. One new technique or strategy I used, which is a very common one, and I think a lot of people use it and should use it, is blocking out the colors in the entire painting first before rendering. I usually render the exact piece I'm currently working on, but this time I really did want to block out certain colors and certain shapes so I could get a general feel for it, as I did want to focus on the composition and color and the general look of the painting. Now, why did I exactly want to paint? Honestly, it's been the gouache portraits I've been doing on my other social media pages. Like, I've been forcing or tasking myself more of to paint a lot of more gouache portraits. And it kind of goes back to the idea and trend of the 100 faces challenge, I believe it's called. I'm not really doing that, but I do want to get to a point where I can confidently draw portraits. And the very last portrait, which wasn't a real the entire face, more of just the eyes, was on my new sketchbook that I just purchased. You can see the making of that on my TikTok and my Instagram, I believe. And it's just I have improved. I can now work with gouache paints. I do want to get into oil painting, but my bank statements won't allow that. And once I get some more money, I will be stepping into that. I already have a giant canvas in my room sitting there for like, I believe 2 months now. And it's time to really unpack that and work with oil paints. I've never worked with oil paints, so it's going to be a challenge, and I'm gonna watch a lot of tutorials and just try to get myself into that, even practice on other canvases that aren't as important to me just to get a feel for it, because with gouache I've now got a feel for it. With digital medias, I've got a feel for it. I have my certain brushes, I have my certain techniques, I have my certain colors that I can work with very well, and I just know will work together. As for oil paints, I've seen a lot of YouTubers use them, and I've been watching a lot of portrait competitions and specifically YouTubers that specialize in oil paintings, and I'm just very inspired and I want to get into that media. I want to get back into actually working with real paints more than the digital, because for my school I do work primarily digital, and I just need to get back into the real drawing. Not to say that digital art isn't art, it actually is very much so, and it has a much bigger and growing audience than actual real paintings, I believe. And from my observations, I've seen that. And there is a lot of work and training and practice that goes into digital work, but I just have been focused on the media so much that I do want to go back to the traditional and find my way back into working with pen and paper, which I have been doing with daily sketches if you've been following on my social media. And it's just very satisfying to see something and have something in your hand than just on a screen. It's a lot more rewarding for me personally. Whilst I do love the digital media and I will continue to use it, for example for this painting, I do really miss the more traditional way of doing it, and I'm really getting back into it. But I love both art forms, so I can't really decide which one is better. It's just a temporary like love for that or desire for that media than for the other. I honestly don't know if that made any sense, but I don't really care. I'm just rambling, which is another thing I need to work on. I need to practice to describe the paintings I make, and also the way I made them, why I made them, the meaning of them. I really need to practice and get more into that. And for that, I do need to brush up on my art history, because a lot of my references come from art history, and not knowing them and not being able to explain them or place them in a timeline is pretty bad, to say the least. So I really need to get back into that and actually train and read into it. But with all my exams coming up, it's really time consuming, so I'm pushing that to the holidays when I do have time, but I'm really excited to get back into it. Let's see what comes out of it. But I'm gonna let you enjoy the rest of the speed paint with more of a nicer tone with some good music. one thing I do want to start implementing into my videos is a soft critique or even a reflection of what we've accomplished today. And I do say accomplished because, girl, this is some work. And it is an accomplishment. Even if we don't or aren't quite satisfied with the product in the end, it's still something we've worked hard on. I've put a lot of time into this, and I think it's important to reflect on those things, but not in a mean or in a demeaning way, more of in a positive way, and really finding things we can improve on. And this piece in particular, it's I think the second digital piece that I did in the horizontal format that I've fully completed, and I'm looking at it behind the camera, which is why I'm always looking back there. But one thing I will say from the top of my head is that I really do need to work on my environmental design, and especially on how I illustrate it and render it. Now, these trees and the castle in the back, they're all fine. Like, they're not the worst. They're not the worst thing I've seen in planet Earth, but they're not on a level that I aspire to be. And it's something I can reach, definitely. It's not something too far away if I put my mind on it and I actually practice more regularly than I usually do. It's not a hard thing to achieve. Because I've trained drawing people, clothes, hair, swords even, multiple times. And over years, I've slowly been perfecting my technique. I'm far from perfect, but I am getting there very slowly, and that's all I can hope for. And I think this painting is a good reflection of that. You can see the techniques and the actual effort and talent that already went into the clothing, the armor pieces, the swords, the anatomy. And you know, talent is actually the wrong word for it. It's more of the practice and the actual repetition of doing something and actually getting better of it and understanding it and actually really going in depth on how do I draw this. And I'm no stranger to YouTube tutorials, but they can only do so much. Going in and actually practicing day by day really does a lot. And especially now, since I'm in an art university and I am tasked with drawing every day, and I actually enjoy it. It's just a lot, but also very rewarding because you can see your art improve. You will have many bad days. Let me assure you, like, I've had plenty of bad drawing days, but they did help me in some ways. Like, I've gotten more confident with drawing a singular line. I've got more comfortable with actually drawing architecture and urban scenes. And if you follow my social media accounts, you're probably aware of that. Also, for portraits, I'm getting more into them and really understanding the anatomy of the face. It's a lame conclusion, but I think it's important to reiterate because I think many people forget that, especially in this day and age where artificial intelligence has become a very prominent tool in this society and market. And, you know, I'm a hater of AI, and I'll stand by that. AI is just not my friend. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. But in conclusion, I think there are a few details that I want to improve on. I think the armor pieces and the especially metal details have definitely improved from the last time I've done this. And especially because this is a full illustration, I do want to task myself on giving it a bit more time than I did. I scrambled the last few parts after adding the blue background. I really pressured myself to finish it very quickly, which wasn't beneficial, but it definitely was a decision. And now I am done, I can move on to my next project. I've really been stumped on this project for quite some time. I believe I started this before I moved, which was now 3 months ago. So yeah, it's been a while. But I'm happy to move on to a next piece. I am quite satisfied with this. There are a lot of things I can do better, a lot of things that I've done good and done well. And yeah, I don't really have more to say to this. I don't know, it's the first time I'm doing this, so brace with me. We're trying to work through this. And yeah, I'll catch y'all next time. Hopefully not in 3 months. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you next time.